This shocking Epstein press conference that Melania Trump delivered this week deserves far more than a single day, or even a single week of coverage. It shouldn't fade after a month either. We really need to keep discussing this until we fully uncover the Epstein files, until every single document sees the light of day, and until real accountability and justice are delivered to every survivor. And I believe the timing of this press conference is especially striking, particularly amid all the talk about the kind of blackmail material Epstein may have gathered on behalf of Mossad, while the Israeli government appears to be influencing Donald Trump and his unlawful war on Iran. But everything clicked into place when a former Palm Beach prosecutor offered some compelling insights into Melania's comments, what motivated them, and how they connect to the much-discussed relationship between her and Epstein, the very issue that has Melania Trump working hard to silence Michael Wolff. I want to dive into all of this and how it links together, but it begins with the fact that Melania Trump delivered this announcement seemingly without Donald Trump's prior awareness. Yeah, Nicole, that's the big question on everyone's mind right now. As a matter of fact, I just ended a brief call with President Trump right before we went live. He mentioned he was in the middle of a war-related meeting, couldn't speak for long, and had to rush off. He made it clear he had no advance notice about the subject his wife, Melania Trump, would address today in her statement. During that call, he repeated that he needed to go, but just before hanging up, he added that she didn't know him, clearly meaning Jeffrey Epstein. Out of all the details, I find this one particularly fascinating, especially when it comes to the relationship dynamic between Melania and Donald Trump. I've been wondering for quite a while whether these two are already living separately and possibly heading toward divorce. Or perhaps Melania has no interest in divorcing Trump because she knows the full picture of his health, senses that his time may be running short, and figures she can simply wait for the natural end, what you might call the biological divorce or father time stepping in to free her from her terrible husband. But another possibility is that Donald Trump simply forgot Melania had mentioned it to him and it slipped his mind. I don't buy that explanation. Instead, I think she deliberately chose not to tell him. Melania realizes she's getting ahead of something, and she's definitely trying to get in front of it. If my suspicion about Todd Blanche's role as Attorney General is correct, that his task was to push through the last set of files in a way that shields Donald Trump and then step down, then this situation becomes even more intriguing, especially when you compare what Melania said with Todd Blanche's comments, which Robert Garcia broke down for us right here. And all of this connects directly to what this prosecutor revealed about the possible sexual relationship between Melania and Epstein. Just a couple of days ago, Todd Blanche held his own press conference and was very direct. He stated that nothing further will happen with the Epstein investigation. They've released everything they plan to release, and it's simply not the DOJ's responsibility to go much deeper. That stance is completely at odds with what Melania Trump expressed today. Remember, this is the same investigation that Donald Trump has dismissed as a hoax, one that officials have repeatedly tried to downplay and shut down. Pam Bondi attempted to bury it, and now Todd Blanche appears to be doing the same, possibly at the president's direction. Having Melania Trump suddenly go all in like this, look, I'm not entirely sure what's driving her or why the timing is now, but I can tell you that the contrast between those two positions will matter a great deal in the coming days and weeks. Clearly, they're delivering very different messages. Blanche is essentially saying, "We're finished here. Time to move on. Let's stop talking about it. Epstein? Who cares? There's nothing more to see." Meanwhile, Melania is saying, "I never slept with Epstein. Please go buy my book. We all need to buy my book. My book contains everything." And that pretty much tells us what we need to know without her spelling it out. She's signaling that nothing else is coming, because Melania wouldn't stage this kind of public announcement, and certainly wouldn't do it without Trump's knowledge, unless she was trying to protect herself. My immediate question was, why turn this into a full press conference? Why not just issue a written statement through her lawyer or post it on social media? That would have been far more low-key and logical. Instead, this draws massive attention. Maybe it's meant to distract from other Epstein developments, but then Donald Trump would surely realize there are too many unanswered questions. Which is exactly why we need real answers. A lot of those answers are coming from one former prosecutor and one author who have been sharing details about the connection between Melania and Epstein and why it appears she might be trying to get ahead of something. A former Florida prosecutor has connected Melania's Epstein comments to worries that a sex-related story could leak. During an appearance on MS Now Friday morning, ex-Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg added his voice to those suggesting Melania Trump's unexpected national address about her ties to the convicted abuser was an attempt to stay ahead of potential new disclosures in court. While others were speculating, he pointed specifically to Epstein recordings held by author Michael Wolff. In conversation with MS Now host Jackie Alleman, the former prosecutor was asked about the social circles Melania referenced when she denied being friends with Epstein. "I'm not part of those social circles," he joked before continuing. "But there are pictures of Melania, as you know, with Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein. And the person who directly connects Melania to Epstein is journalist Michael Wolff. I think what she did yesterday was an effort to get ahead of the story because she and Michael Wolff are currently involved in litigation." He went on to explain, Michael Wolff, according to the Daily Beast, which she mentioned by name during the press conference, possesses these recordings. On them, you can hear Jeffrey Epstein's voice claiming that the first time Melania and Donald Trump had sex was aboard Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Of course, Melania also denied that Epstein played any role in introducing her to Donald. I believe this press conference was precisely about getting in front of that. It seems less about the social circles and more about the recordings she's concerned might surface. The prosecutor added that more audio about their relationship is likely to emerge. We also have audio and video from a Prince Andrew biographer who has stated his belief that Melania and Epstein were lovers. "See, here we are with him in Mar-a-Lago, as you see, with Epstein." Sorry, can you see? Okay. Epstein, a woman called Gwendolyn Beck, who Andrew took to the island, and Melania. I had various references in my book to Melania Trump. Epstein had actually been her lover before Trump, but Trump didn't like that in the book, so he ordered it to be withdrawn, to be taken out of the book after about 60,000 copies had been printed. So it seemed to be a pretty pointless gesture. But anyway, my publishers did it. But I keep spreading the word. So we have that leaked audio the prosecutor described, in which Michael Wolff claims Melania and Jeffrey Epstein were involved before she and Donald Trump ever got together, that there was a prior relationship. The prosecutor is implying this is part of why Melania seems to be panicking. That same leaked audio from Michael Wolff that we've discussed before. He has been releasing pieces of it steadily since right around the end of the 2024 election, and he continues to put out what he says are hours upon hours of recordings of his conversations with Jeffrey Epstein about Epstein's relationship with Donald Trump, and naturally, his relationship with Melania Trump as well. That leaked audio, combined with the prosecutor referencing it and indicating that even more is expected, especially coming from a former Palm Beach and Florida prosecutor, gives me every reason to take it seriously. Yeah, I think Melania and Jeffrey Epstein very likely did have a relationship, that additional details will continue to surface, and that Melania's name is going to appear more frequently in the Epstein files. After all, her name was among those that got redacted. We saw that warm email Melania sent to Ghislaine Maxwell where she said things like, "Oh, you look so great in the magazine, and so did Jeffrey, and so did everybody, and we love you, and I'm going to be in New York, and I got to see you. What's going on?" She never denied the friendly tone. But Melania's name was blacked out, right? We remember it said something like Melania Ghislaine. They were clearly in communication. So are there other redactions where Melania's name appears? They obscured Ghislaine Maxwell's name, and it was obvious who the email was addressed to. They also crossed out Melania. Shouldn't those details be revealed? We need members of Congress back in those DOJ rooms going through every document. We really do, because that's the only way we'll uncover more about Melania Trump's links to Jeffrey Epstein. But it does look like a relationship may have existed. I don't even like discussing it because it's repulsive to imagine between the two of them. Of course, Melania's modeling agent was someone who reportedly supplied women for Epstein. Of course, it amounted to trafficking, but the chance that they had a personal relationship feels quite strong. And I think Melania understands that any extra focus on Epstein deeply worries Trump because it hurts him. And by extension, it lands on her too. So she definitely doesn't want the topic kept alive. But let's consider this from another angle. I mentioned Thomas Massie earlier. I mentioned Mossad. I mentioned Israel. Thomas Massie recently highlighted this issue, really calling out the DOJ's efforts to bury the files in the wake of Pam Bondi's firing. And I want to examine that further. Why do you think he's fighting so hard to keep them from being released after all these months? What do you think the true motivation is? These files likely name billionaires, his own friends, and major political donors he wants to shield. And Epstein also maintained close connections to American intelligence agencies as well as Israeli intelligence agencies. That's the real reason there's such resistance to letting this go forward, and I suspect they'll try to block it through other channels too. Now, even before we get into what might be inside those files or how it could be driving Donald Trump to act in Israel's interest, let me just say it's absolutely wild that we even have to question whether the President of the United States is launching an illegal war against a sovereign country on behalf of a supposed ally, simply because that ally allegedly used a pedophile to gather compromising information on U.S. officials and other prominent Americans. Now our president appears to be using that very information to wage war in ways that harm us. That supposed ally was apparently trying to amass blackmail material to extort the United States of America. The mere fact that this is something we're seriously considering and that it feels entirely plausible is insane. It's crazy. We have to admit this is batshit. The idea that Israel might be extorting Donald Trump using blackmail collected by Jeffrey Epstein, possibly while he worked as a Mossad asset. We don't have definitive proof, but the links between Epstein and Mossad, Epstein's activities in Israel, and his relationships with former Israeli prime ministers and top officials are unmistakable. The fact that this scenario even feels realistic is so wildly outrageous that maybe Melania's announcement was designed to head off any blackmail pressure Israel might be applying to the president to push him toward escalating this war. It's incredible that we've reached a point where that feels like a possible conclusion, and I know some will call it conspiracy thinking, but it actually seems pretty grounded, doesn't it? Israel recognizes this may be their final real opportunity, given the major shift in public opinion against the wars they've pulled us into, the genocide they're carrying out, their offensive operations, and the broader misadventures across the Middle East. They see that sentiment is turning. Most Americans now feel we should end all aid to Israel, both offensive and defensive weapons, because they have plenty of resources and can handle things themselves. They view Israel not as a partner, but as a parasite. So this looks like a desperate last attempt to drag the U.S. into further conflict with Iran, illegally seizing and occupying even more land in the Middle East. And the possibility that they're leveraging Epstein-derived blackmail to achieve it is staggering. But that's the reality we're facing right now. Some may label it conspiratorial, but I believe it demands open discussion. We're going to wrap up the show here. And if you want to support this kind of conversation, as always, you can hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video. If you stayed until the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep fighting, everyone. Don't let them silence you. Until next time, I'll see you.